Hi, everybody, and welcome to this week's Hot Topic video. I'm so glad that you joined me today. My name is Marcy Melzer, and I am an intuitive speech and language pathologist. And I do these tip of the week videos every week to demonstrate all about language facilitation strategies that parents can use and professionals can use these too while you help facilitate language with your late talker. And this week's hot topic is all about how to use your speech and language therapist as a resource. And I'm going to give you 7 tips to see faster progress in your speech and language therapy. It's going to make your child make more improvement. It'll make your speech therapist look great, and it'll make you look great as a language facilitator parent. So the fact is that in order to really know what to do to help your late talker learn how to use words, you need the guidance from a speech and language pathologist. We are the professionals who went to school for many years. We're guided through lots of practice, and many of us out there working for many, many years doing just that. Our mission, our job is to help people communicate better. And the best speech pathologists are ones who understand that parents play a very, very key and vital role in the speech and language development process. So when a parent, it's actually a very common frustration among speech therapists that the parents don't get involved in the process of the speech and language improvement. And when the parents don't buy in and help reinforce what's going on in the therapy, then the child's not going to make improvement, because just the kind of exposure, even if your therapist is the best therapist on the planet, if your child is only getting the speech and language exposure and facilitation, like targeted facilitation toward better speech and language in their session, it's not enough, especially for a late talker, who's older than 2 or 3 years old. You need to be doing this kind of work all the time in between sessions. And like I said, it's a very common frustration for speech pathologists that I talk to every day, that they've got parents who are amazing and want to buy in and help their kids. And then they've got other parents who are just as content to leave the session or leave even the room when they're there at their house working. So I'm here to tell you that if you have a speech pathologist, your best way to utilize that professional to help you is by doing these 7 things that I'm going to talk to you about today. So the first thing I want to tell you about is that you need to start from the very beginning. And if you're already working with your therapist, you can do this now, but you must do it at the very beginning of your process. You have to tell the therapist about the specific communication problems that you're having at home. The therapist is inevitably going to need to do some kind of evaluation with a test where they'll get some scores, and they might do an age equivalent or a standard score or give you a developmental level based on the testing that they've done. But that is just only a little part of what the therapist can help you understand about your child. So at the very beginning, when you're getting ready to start working with your child, you must communicate with your therapist about the nuts and bolts, the very specific things. For example, my child won't use words to ask, or my child's always pushing me, or my child's always screaming, or the things that you notice every day, patterns in your child about their communication. You need to make sure that your speech pathologist understands what those are, because inevitably there is communication that happens, challenges, good and bad situations that happen outside of the therapy session that your therapist can't see. So you must let them know at the very beginning, these are the things that I'm concerned about. These are the things that we in our family need to understand about communicating. And so that's the first tip is that you Communicate with your therapist about, in addition to the testing they're doing, the very specific things that are going on in your house. And then the next thing, the second tip that I have, is that you watch the session. And it might seem like, that's not a big deal, or that it's not that, important or whatever, but it is the most important thing you can do. Therapy time is not the time for you to be running to Starbucks or making phone calls or checking emails or doing work. That's the time for you to be learning about how to help your child by, at the very least, watching what the therapists are doing. So no matter what therapy your child is going to, even if it's OT or PT, or even if it's physical, even if it's respiratory therapy, vision therapy, any therapy your child goes to, if you can't be right there in the room with the child, then you need to watch it through a two-way mirror or something like that. Now, I know that it's common for families to sort of not have that option. Let's say your child's therapy is at school, and you can't see them then. Or you have another child who you have to wait in the waiting room with, or you have multiple kids, or for whatever reason, it's not possible for you to observe that therapy session. Maybe it's your spouse who's the one who's taking them. In that case, you need to make sure that you get some kind of report about what is happening in the sessions. Not just like Johnny did a good job today, or Johnny said a word today. You need to know what are the activities that are going on in the therapy sessions. And if your child is at school getting therapy, you need to try to communicate with the speech pathologist about the kinds of things that they are putting together in their lesson plans. So, and because the next tip that I have is that you're going to want to take some of those experiences and try to not even necessarily recreate the speech therapist, but introduce your child to those same things yourself. So if there's a toy that your child really enjoyed, then that's a toy that you can play with at home. If it is a book that they read in school, if there's in therapy or school, if there's a song, if there's phrases, or there's some little trick that the therapist used that worked to help get your child talking, you're going to want to know what that is, because therapists have some amazing tricks up their sleeve and you never know what's going to work. So they might be trying all different kinds of things. That's why watching is best, because you kind of never know what happens sometimes. So do your best, if you can't watch the session, to know what's happening, what activities they are doing, because that's going to be very important information for you to help continue that work at home in between sessions. All right, tip number tip number 3 was to integrate the therapy experiences outside of therapy. And then tip number 4 is, if you do see your child's therapists, use the 1/3 rule. And that means that you want your therapy session, however long it is, to be broken up into thirds. If it's a half hour, or it's an hour, or 45 minutes, whatever, use the 1/3 rule. And that means 1/3 of the therapy time is going to be getting in, getting settled, and getting out and transitioning out of the session. There's always going to be a third of that. And a smart therapist is going to use that transition time to already start to be facilitating language. It's not going to be the sit down, do structured time. A third of the time is going to be spent getting in, getting settled, and getting out, getting cleaned up and moved out. So that's the first third. The second third is the actual work that the therapist is doing, the therapy activities, the evidence-based practice, the drills, the whatever they're doing as far as therapy activities. That's the second third. And the third third should be parent coaching. So a whole 1/3 of your session. So that means even if you have a half hour time, 10 minutes of that time should be spent in communication with your therapist about strategies that you can use at home. Not about Johnny said a word today, Johnny did great today, about that progress, about whatever. That 1/3, that 10 minutes of your 30-minute session, or a third of your time should be spent getting strategies for you to use at home and allowing the therapist the time to explain those strategies to you so that you can understand them and ask questions. And a minute or two at the end of the session isn't enough to get the real kind of coaching you need. So believe me, that 10 minutes for you to learn what's going on is going to be way more valuable than 10 more minutes of playing a game or doing a toy or facilitating that thing with your therapist, okay? So, and that coming in time should be tip number 5. You need to, every session, bring a question or statement about what's going on at home. So you have to, this is tip number 6, or 5, I guess we're at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't know, so many. So you're going to make sure that you are bringing a question every time about your circumstance at home, so that number 7, you can get one easy job to do at home between your sessions. You don't need a general whatever, just talk more, read more stories, do what you're doing. That's not going to help you. You want to get from your therapist a job you can do at home. So for example, your job could be every time Joey brings you the cookies, you say, "Cookies, please." That could be your one easy job. Every time your child brings you something, you say that thing plus please. You have to get an easy job that you can integrate every day, all day, to help solve one of those problems that you're having at home. Because if it's solving one of the problems that you're having at home, if you bring that question and say, "I don't know what to do," he's not asking for things. All he does is bring me stuff. He just brings it to me, brings it to me, brings it to me. And you tell your therapist that, they're going to know exactly what strategies to give you based on what they know about your child, because they've been working with your child, and what they know about your situation. So if you ask for that one specific job to do every week, that is the key for you to see fast progress. Because what you do in between those sessions is how your child integrates everything the therapist teaches them. And it's necessary, right? Because we're talking about communication here. And your child needs to understand how to use all the things, the words, the phrases, the songs, the books, whatever they're learning in therapy. They've got to learn how to integrate that into their real life. And if you're going to Starbucks and relying on the therapist to do that for you, it's not going to happen quickly, not at all. In fact, it requires 8 to 10 hours of targeted language facilitation every week. Every week, you have to have at least 8 to 10 hours every week of targeted language facilitation. And there's no way you can even pay, if your child goes to ABA for 6 hours a day or whatever, they're not doing natural language facilitation. Each one of those sessions that they're getting at their ABA are targeting a different kind of goal. That targeted language facilitation needs to happen a lot of time. And you're the parents, you're the ones who are with them, you're the ones that see them from the time they wake up till the time they go to bed, and that's how you're going to know how to have the time to do this language facilitation. All right, everybody, so there were 7 tips about how to use your therapist as a resource and see fast progress in your therapy. And most therapists are thrilled when a parent comes to them to say, "Tell me what to do." Because I'm telling you what, a lot of times it doesn't work for parents that way. They don't get the strategies they need. They don't know how to ask for them. And when you ask a therapist who can tell you how to do it, fabulous. You're golden. You're learning what you need to actually teach your children how to use the words they need in natural speech and language. Okay, if that's your goal. And that's why I put in the questions to get into this group. How serious are you about helping your child learn to use speech and language? Because without parents involved in the process, it's a very, very slow and tedious time. It can be a long process anyway, even with parents doing a lot of work. So, you know, the way to know how to do the right things with your child, how to facilitate things the best way, is to get guidance from the professionals who know this stuff. And speech and language pathologists, that's what we do. So that's how you're going to use your speech therapist as a resource to help you see better progress. If there are other parents who you know who are in therapy and they're struggling seeing progress, this could be a great video for you to point out to them. If they're in this group, they can see that video. If they're not in this group, share the group, and they can come and see all the videos that I have, all the tip of the week videos I have here in the group. And if you are interested in working with me, if you don't have a therapist in your life right now who can give you the kind of strategies you need to help you, that's what I do in my Waves of Communication Parent Coaching Program. So if you are interested in knowing more about that, you can check out my website, wavesofcommunication.com. Have a great day, everybody, and I will see you all on my next live video.